Thank you for tuning in to Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and we're here with comic Danny Suggs. Danny Suggs, how the hell are you, man?
Very good, sir. How you doing?
Oh, good. Now, up top, where can people in New York City see you live on stage? You're at West Side Comedy Club?
West Side Comedy Club, Broadway Comedy Club, Greenwich Comedy Club. I go to the Lantern, on occasion. Just pretty much any place anybody will have me.
But to find you that night, we go to DannySuggsComedy.com.
DannySuggsComedy.com or just Danny Suggs Comedy on Instagram, Facebook.
Even Twitter. I follow you on Twitter. So are you at Danny Suggs?
Yeah, at
Okay.
Danny Suggs Comedy. Yeah.
Okay. Now you're more of a dry comic and things like that. So kind of your energy is a little bit more low key on stage.
Yeah, I'm a low key comic, but I like to do like clever, like punchlines. So like kind of take you on a ride. You don't really know what's coming.
So is it some misdirection, or do you play with you kind of play with the idea that the audience doesn't really know you yet? So up top, you can be a little bit more withholding and slowly reveal who you are through jokes.
Exactly. Like I like to keep people guessing, but for instance, if I'm talking about like a cell phone, I want to speak about something that everybody knows because I have a lot of friends who are all over, Europeans, so they might not get necessarily what a bodega is if I do like a New York theme. Like type joke, but everybody that has a cell phone, they're going to know what it's like to have somebody hovering over their shoulder or, trying to see what they're, doing when they're trying to construct their own text message. So very general things, but I like to keep it, clever.
And so a Danny Suggs cell phone joke would start out with a cell phone because you got a lot of people in the audience who have one.
Hopefully,
but
everybody.
But it's more clever, and you'll kind of go in a place that might be unexpected.
Unexpected, and things that people know happens to them on a regular basis, but they're like, oh my god, I thought it was just me, but like, no, it's everybody. Everybody has those experiences,
and we're sitting there nodding along because it's like, although I'm a European tourist, I know exactly what you're fucking talking about. Right?
Exactly.
Now me and you have a shared interest in nostalgia.
Yes.
I'm kind of stuck in the past with respect to, even grade school and high school. I was just a badass, just coasting on my own melted cheese sandwich for just decades. And shit didn't hit the fan until I was about 20. And then I got my reality check, as most dumbasses do. What are you nostalgic about, and what's the healthy way to be nostalgic and not clinging to the past? Because you're obviously a comedian who's successful, and if you're coasting if you're kind of coasting on the past, you can't go out there and just own the New York City comedy scene.
Right. I'm a big fan of Little Debbie snack cakes. Growing up, I went to a private school, so my parents would not give me access to sweet cereals and, cookies, things like that. So going to somebody's sleepover, I'm like, corn pops.
Little Debbie snack cakes and sugar cereal, man.
We're eating shredded wheats at my parents' house. Like, I didn't even know what Applejack was. And things
so kind of growing up, they didn't give you the things you wanted.
They thought it was love, but I realized, that it was hatred. They call it tough love now.
But then you had the rebellion, and you're going elsewhere, and you're eating the corn pops at the sleepover and things like that. So did your parents at any point realize that they kind of had done the opposite and drove you into the arms of Little Debbie?
I still eat like I'm a 10-year-old kid, because I just didn't have access to all that stuff. I have a lot of making up to do.
And then is there anything else from your childhood that kind of Danny Suggs back in the day, what was your, before comedy, what was your just the peak Danny Suggs? And what were you, what clothes were you wearing? What were you listening to? You thought you were the shit when you were how old?
I thought I was shit when I was probably 13.
Yeah.
Everything I was wearing was Ocean Pacific, like Hobie, like members only. Again, because I went to a private school, I could only dress outside, of school. So anytime I was invited to like a dance, like we had a school dance on occasion, I could do that. But like any church functions, so anything that my parents' friends' kids had, they allowed us to go to. I would always, just try to dress it up. Just it's kind of like being a prisoner and finally being able to take off, that orange jumper.
So you still do it through style because you're styling right now. Kind of what's your dress on stage? Like what is the role of your attire on stage as a comic? Why are certain comics in suits, and why are you not wearing a suit?
I like to wear all black.
Okay.
People have, kind of thought I was a good dresser, like once upon a time, maybe still, but I don't want people focusing on that ever, so I try to wear only black on stage. I might wear like a variety of sneakers, but I want them focusing on the joke, not on my belt, not on my shirt, not on my sweatshirt. So I try to keep black jeans, just a clean palette so they can focus on the material. I don't want anybody to get distracted. I need all the laughs I can get.
Yeah. Now, what is the role of distraction in comedy? Like, do you find that these comedy clubs you're doing can be better as far as rooting out distractions? Like, do people ever pull out their cell phones and you see their glowing face? And how do you deal with something like that? Do you do crowd work to kind of get them off their phones if they happen to be on a phone, or a check drop or something that's distracting them?
Like on occasion, somebody of a particular age, like maybe 60 or above, their phone might ring, and I'm like, it can't really, give them a hard time because
Yeah.
everybody's got like a dad that doesn't understand his
Yeah.
technology on his phone. Sometimes you get like hecklers, somebody that's in there like maybe drinking 1 to 7 drinks, and they're not aware that the 1 to 7 drinks have taken hold of them. So you kind of have to, keep them, at bay without, disrupting the entire. And like you don't want, this interaction to be going back and forth, and now
Yeah.
your time is expired. So you want to, playfully shut them the fuck up, and
Yeah.
kind of move on
Without becoming the bad guy.
Right, especially like if it's somebody like older, like you don't want to be deemed somebody that just heckled a 77-year-old woman that was celebrating her 50th wedding anniversary like with her husband just because she's been inebriated because she's like PBRs.
Yeah, there's a great sale on PBRs, but she had a few. It was too good of a deal on PBR tonight. And is there any comedy show? Like, what's the perfect comedy show? If you're producing a comedy show, who else is on the show with you? What other kinds of comics, or you can even mention them by name, but what kind of comics do you like listening to?
I mean, I'm a dry comic, but I know some people that are just very, very expressive. Some people that are just like super animated. I feel like going to a comedy show is a perfect date. So I'd like to see a comedy show where there's just a variety of comedians, so that somebody can say, I didn't necessarily like him or her, but I loved like her and, this guy, just so everybody can really, really get something out of it. Because, some people are just not into the greats.
Yeah.
Some people are not going to love a Kevin Hart for whatever reason, or like even a Dave Chappelle, if you can believe that. Who knows why, but they might like somebody that we, the people may not necessarily love. So
who could not like Kevin Hart? So I just watched the documentary that came out that he did about kind of the scandals that have engulfed his irresponsible tour over the last year, and he did a good job kind of putting it all in perspective. Is Kevin Hart? Do you have a Mount Rushmore of comedy? If so, is Kevin Hart anywhere near there? Because I would almost put him on mine. The minute somebody does 4 or 5 streaming specials that are pretty excellent, I'll be like, I'm going to watch every special this guy does. And there's not many of them. Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Kevin Hart, Eliza Schlesinger is good. Who's on yours, and how is Danny Suggs going to be on mine in the future?
I mean, I hate to bring up Dave Chappelle again, but I'm just a big fan of, like Dave, when I first started doing comedy. Geographically, we're from the same area. So people would always say, oh, you kind of sound like Dave Chappelle. So then I just kind of stopped watching him because I was fearful that his voice would seep into mine. I'm a big fan of Kevin Hart, and I feel like, the more scandal, the more obstacles you have, like that's just more, fire, like for once you get on stage, like stories that you can tell people on they want to be able to identify with you, that know that your life is not as perfect as they may think it is. So people want, to walk, through life with somebody knowing that, whatever they're experiencing, happens to the best of the best people.
Yeah, because if you have a long career like they do, if you cannot take a scandal and make comedy out of it, like they'll be like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, I really want to hear what his excuse for this is, and then I want him to make it funny, because then he kept me a Kevin Hart believer thereafter.
Right.
But like Dave Chappelle, it's like I heard so much about Dave Chappelle just being a legend, and I thought he was known for characters that were more high energy on his show, but then he came out and I was like, man, he is a little bit more low key, and I guess maybe because he smokes, I've heard he smokes a lot of pot, and maybe that's why he's a little bit more low energy, but he is kind of dry and of course clever as hell.
Yeah.
And so was his delivery always that low key? And it's just his characters that were kind of high energy. Certain characters of his were high energy.
Definitely that was his, like energy, but I think he would become certain characters that he either wanted to make fun of or he didn't necessarily care for and wanted to bring to the forefront.
And do you do anything like that? I mean, do you have any characters that are a little bit more high energy to kind of break up any, clever, dry stuff you have going on?
I will speak with a monotone voice, but when I'm trying to make a point out of nowhere, I'll just kind of yell,
Nice.
just kind of drive it home, and then I go right back down. So people are they're shocked, they're laughing, they're like, why did he do that? He did that. That's funny. Is he going to do it again?
And then he went back a little bit. And I love that. Like, the more space on stage you have, I almost think Norm Macdonald had something like that. It's like people shouldn't ask, a stand-up shouldn't ask the audience for applause or whatever because you're taking the air out of the balloon. And so the way he always did it was always so kind of nerve-wracking because you're like, when is Norm Macdonald going to be funny? Like,
Right.
where's the punchline? And he almost just kind of luxuriated in that silence. Have you noticed, being kind of a lower-key, dry comedian who's clever, have you ever had to embrace the silence? Back in the day, were you ever scared of silence and lack of laughter? And have you had to embrace it and make it your friend?
Terrified. Initially, I was terrified of it. Even if it happens today, now it's freeing because you're just like, fuck it. Like whatever is going to happen is going to happen. Let me just get out here and just like do what I think I can do. And
It could go bad, but then again, it could go good.
I mean, I
Right.
really view everything as a learning experience.
Okay.
Like no comedian's going to have a perfect set, across the board. And that's why it's important to watch, the greats, because they'll either tell you that or you'll see some of the work and say, oh, well, that was good, but it wasn't as good as you expected it to be. So you're like, oh, like everybody has days like this. So that's part of the process, I think.
And have you ever seen somebody up close in a small room, like either been on a show with them? Have you ever seen, Dave Chappelle come work out an act, or Chris Rock, or any of those people who are always doing their pop-ins?
I have not. 2020, that is, on the things to do list.
Just make sure you get popped in and bumped for a Chris Rock.
At least make sure I'm in the room. I might be sweeping, but I want to be in the room.
Yeah, and now some of the comics who are coming up, who do you who's in the scene that I haven't heard of that I should have heard of besides Danny Suggs? And we all know who Danny Suggs is, but like who are you like, man, this guy's about to pop?
Big fan of Jay Jordan.
Okay.
He was on the NBC diversity finalist last year. I guess the year before last. Now that's 2020. A big fan of him. God, there's just...
Or just other people you're bumping into in the rooms that you're like, man, I could tour with that guy. Not only has he got a good, unique point of view, but I like his delivery and he's a good hang.
There's a girl named Julia Branda. I really like her. She's from Jersey. She definitely has a point of view. I think she's very, very funny. I don't think that I've heard anybody like her recently. Frankie French, she's from the D.C. metropolitan area, but she comes back and forth to New York City all the time.
Oh, cool. And have you gone to D.C. and kind of worked with her at all, or would you be open to doing that?
Absolutely.
Like somebody you respect in a different market, kind of, put them on here and they put you on there?
Absolutely. Actually, I took part in the Embassy Diversity Showcase as well, and she and I met there. So over Christmas holiday, I did a show. She was not there, but I did a show in D.C., so that was just fantastic.
Okay.
My family hasn't seen me do anything quite yet, but I wanted to make sure I put my thumbprint down in that area so that I can try to get some spots out there.
You're from that area?
Yeah, I'm from Northern Virginia, right outside D.C., about 25 miles.
D.C. Now D.C., if you go home, do you do spots when you're in, like, you're going home for some sort of holiday? Is there a place where you can get up and kind of test your comedy in front of your home market? And do is there anything about Washington, D.C. that you can take the piss out of? Is there anything just hilarious about it that you can't say to a New York audience?
I love where I'm from, but as far as the direction that I'm going in my life, it was just like too conservative. It was like very, very, just very, very boring for me.
Like politics you stay away from?
Yeah, like, people want to laugh, and, that's just one of, I've seen people's relationships end over political conversations.
Over your political joke. You're doing a political joke. People are on a date. By the end of the joke, they're no longer on the date. They're like, oh, did you agree with what Danny Suggs said? I didn't. We're done.
Especially when people are drinking, that just, amplifies, like, everything. See, I like to be very, very careful about that. I might, like, mention Trump's name, but I would just never put my opinion. Secret ballot for a reason.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to know what I'm thinking.
That's the first time I heard that. Yeah. Now, what's a Danny Suggs joke with the word Trump in it? Like you talked about the other comics that you look at who maybe have a unique point of view, other than your kind of style being clever and maybe low key. What is your point of view that's unique, that everybody could hear? Like if I could see a joke online that was just somebody stole from you, I'd be like, no, that's a Danny Suggs joke. I know you took that.
I remember once when I went to Spain for the first time, I was out there with a group of friends. They were out there doing a whole lot of stuff that I wasn't really into. So I was like, I'm going to venture and hang out with the, the commoners, the townspeople. So there was a bunch of people that were like drinking, like smoking weed. And, because I'm from the States, they're like, like, what's up with Trump? And I was just like, he's high too, because he was just making so many, because he
That's
was
clever and deadpan, yeah.
because everybody was just like,
I haven't heard that either.
please give us some, explanation as to what's going. This is like early on, like when he just, he had become elected, but
Yeah, before he started a war to get reelected, that whole recent Iran stuff.
Yeah, like every time I saw somebody, I would see them. I'm just like, like sorry.
Yeah,
I just feel like I had to apologize, like my child had just like gone wild and wrecked somebody's birthday party.
But I love it. He's high too. I haven't heard that, and so you can take something that everybody has heard. Like I've heard so much stuff about Trump, and I've heard sorry and stuff like that. And even Rose McGowan with her recent apologizing to the Iranian people for disrespecting their flag, etc. It's just like, Rose McGowan, what the hell are you doing saying I'm sorry to the Iranian people because we kill, this guy was some sort of, they classified him as a terrorist leader and things like that. And so it's like, but Rose McGowan knows.
Yeah.
It's her role to immediately apologize before knowing anything about it. But I've heard a lot of Trump stuff, even including I'm sorry for my president, but it's the first time I've heard he's high too. And that in addition to what was the other thing he said recently? It's like, I never fucking heard that. And that's where Danny Suggs lives as far as comedy.
Absolutely.
And so how do you kind of keep that up? I mean, when you're writing, do you wait for the sixth joke? I mean, do you think that the first two, are kind of hacky and you wait for the third? Like, certain people are like, well, tell the first joke. That's the first thing that comes to mind. That's what everybody's going to think. The second joke, you're a little bit closer to originality. The third one is where Danny Suggs finds his Trump joke. Like, what's your writing process?
I like to tell the first joke that I'm pretty familiar with, and I feel like it's just gonna, kind of umbrella the entire room, just to kind of take the temperature of the room to see, like, can I do a hip hop joke? Like, can I do a race joke talking about me, never about any other race, but I don't mind talking about my people.
Yeah.
Just to see like how the room is, and then I'll just kind of, I like to pepper, certain materials in there, just depending on like what the audience is like. Sometimes you get like a under 23 audience, you might get like an over like 60 that might not know. Who Jay-Z even is.
Yeah, and so is it like a choose your own adventure, where like you do bring up that umbrella joke, and if they don't obviously don't know who Jay-Z is at all, you kind of go to your next umbrella joke. Do you actually are you that good that you can kind of just go through your umbrella jokes, and the minute somebody doesn't know something, you're able to easily transition to your next umbrella joke?
I'll address the fact that you don't know who that is, and I'll tell somebody,
because they can laugh at themselves.
Go get a computer. Go get a computer. Go get your grandmother's encyclopedia. Like, what are you doing with your life? Do something. This should be common knowledge.
That's hilarious, because you can poke, and I almost think they would be ready to laugh at that.
Yeah.
Because the person who doesn't know who Jay-Z is the first to admit, I don't know who Jay-Z is. I've stopped trying to figure out who these people are 20 years ago when I gave up music, when I started raising my kids. That they would laugh at that, and then you would kind of move over into your next umbrella topic and see if that would work better.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, like, if you don't know who Jay-Z is, like, you have to admit that you don't know who Beyonce is either. You have to know who she is, regardless if you want to or not.
Yeah, so that's your next joke, and I would also laugh at that, because it's like, well, I don't know who Jay-Z is, but I know who Beyonce is a little bit, and you can even play with that a little bit. Okay, well, that sounds great. Now I want to see you next time, and so I'm going to go on as DannySuggsComedy.com.
Well, actually,
look for your next dates.
Yeah, like all my dates are it's Danny Suggs Comedy. All my shows are posted on my Instagram.
Okay.
And
that's just Danny Suggs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do the same thing on Facebook and Twitter. The .com is coming.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Danny Suggs Comedy, I think we referenced that. Is that?
Yeah, that's how you just track me down and find anything that I'm doing geographically.
So if I were to go into Facebook search engine, and go to Danny Suggs Comedy, it would bring up your comedy page.
Yeah, everything.
Right. And then, are you doing anything? I think, what was his name? Sullivan is what the fuck is his name? He's the new guy, Andy Schwartz. Who's that new guy? He's doing. At the very least, okay, this guy's coming up. I thought it was Andy Schultz. Maybe I'm fucking going crazy right now. But
from what venue?
Well, he's just all over the place now. I think he just got a special. But he said, like, the thing for comics to do is clips on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Kind of what's your formula? Like, are you going to videotape certain clips and then put it on Instagram? So if I'm going to Danny Suggs on Instagram, am I going to see kind of a clip of you doing a cool joke on stage?
I have a few things on there, and I intend on putting some more things. I will pull, I'll put the introduction to a joke on there, and I will end it before the punchline
You
comes.
suck.
So if you want to see it, come on to my show, 8 p.m., blah, 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 blah,
That's
blah.
hilarious, dude. You suck, and we hate you, and that's only because we love you, and we want to see the punchlines. So, Danny Suggs, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.